Hey, it's James, and we're really excited today to be bringing you a new piece of content that we are doing in line with our recent white paper, all around key trends that are shaping the industry for 2025 in logistics. So with that, we're going to be sat down with one of our strategic partners, Nick Campbell from over at Driver Provider, as well as one of our familiar faces from Bar 2, Mr. Aaron Phillips. Today we're going to be just sat down and have some good old chat, as well as giving a holistic overview of some of the things that are happening in the transport and logistics industry. So strap on in and see you on the other side. Alrighty, so we are now live. Nick, Aaron,
Alright.
How you doing?
welcome. Thanks for coming in. Beautiful day in London today.
It sure is. Thanks, James.
It really
Cheers
is.
for coming, Nick. It's good to meet you.
No, you're welcome, and it's always a good opportunity. I love coming into London anyway, so.
It is. It makes it, when the sun's shining, it makes it a lot nicer. But no, look, Nick, really appreciate you joining us today. Really excited to have you on. First podcast, recording, video content that we're doing here at Bar 2. So yeah, really excited to invite you along, and thanks for taking time out of your undoubtedly very busy day. I think, look, to start things off, why don't we just kind of start with a bit about you? Everyone knows Aaron. Well, myself, everyone knows my face to an extent as well, but I'd love to hear a little bit about you. Start as far back as you'd like, and then obviously a little bit about kind of Driver Provider and what you're up to.
Okay, so I'm Nick Campbell, Managing Director, Driver Provider UK. We Driver Provider UK we started in April 2021, April 1st, 2021, April Fool's Day.
Nice. That's my daughter's birthday.
Right.
Well, I won't forget.
Yeah, it was a day which quite significant to me as well, because we knew that there was going to be quite a few eyes on us from people. I'd say, I don't like using the word competitors, but people had a vested interest.
Sure.
In seeing how well we did or not.
Well, I think, competition's always healthy, right? Got to be there, otherwise what's business?
Yeah, absolutely. But we try and focus on us and let the competition, or so-called competition, worry about what we're doing rather than the other way around.
Yeah, definitely. And look, it sounds like has it been a fairly competitive couple of years then for you guys? Have you noticed it with that kind of internal?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, we're not necessarily focused on what anybody else is doing. We create competition within. So the only people we're competing against is each other in Driver Provider.
Yeah.
And we've seen 4 years of growth. So it's where what everybody else is doing is we obviously keep an eye on, but it's not in what I call it's not from a competition point of view. I mean, I'm trying not to mention anybody else.
No, I think it's great to be, I understand, as I say, companies thrive in competitive markets, but equally having an awareness of what's going on in the wider market and kind of keeping those blinkers on, like super important. Aaron and I, we work in a extremely, and I will say, competitive space. I think it's a changing space, and I think Bar 2 are going to be one of the big players that are kind of going through that transformation and perception of umbrella companies. But equally, we've got to keep our eyes on what happens, because you've got to be kind of, is it prepare for the best but expect the worst, or something along those lines? I might be butchering that a little bit, but yeah. So we feel it. So you've been working with Aaron at Bar 2 since 2021.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in the industry for 20 plus years now.
Wow.
And I came into the industry as a business with not much experience, and then I went away, got the experience that I was lacking to begin with, and opened up again in 2021. And Aaron's name kept on popping up when I was when I was discussing partnering with a payroll partner.
Yeah.
Aaron's name kept on popping up, and we had a meeting. And anybody who knows me knows I'm about relationships and personalities. And if I can't work, if you're not the right personality, or I can't build that relationship, it's never going to work. Okay. So and
that's 25 quid on the.
I mean, he came highly recommended. We got on from the get go, and I mean, the numbers I put through Bar 2.
Of course.
It's not like we've not valued what you guys do as a partner.
Yeah, that's great.
Yes, thank you, Nick, for your business. A very valued customer, one of my longest standing and favourites. Also, I said, what's good as well, what's interesting is Nick's come from the background as a driver. Before you had an agency, you were driving, and I think that helps with your kind of understanding of what drivers want and being able to retain and keep those guys happy works really well for driver provider.
Well, I mean, just to clarify, yeah, I did work as a driver for a couple of, I think it was about 2 years. My background was, I was a jobbing actor, and I had to find ways of making a living in between.
Yeah.
And I ended up driving a 7.5-ton lorry for some time, which gave me a good insight into life on the other side.
Yeah, for sure.
And when I did open my first agency, it's all right, I can say it now because the company's closed down, but when I did open my first agency, I took all their drivers with me.
Got it. And I guess that's kind of the nature of the beast back then as well. It was very much kind of, you know, little book of business that you've got, you build out your network, you've kind of got a bit of exposure to doing it yourself, you're going to build out pals on the job, probably, you know, drivers mates and things like that.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
So I mean, the reason I did take the drivers with me is because there was always complaints about treatment and how much they earn,
sure.
and so on and so forth. So I said, look, you can trust me, you know, I've been there, I've done what you were doing, and I'm never going to undervalue you. So if you give me the opportunity to prove that, I'll make sure you looked after.
That's amazing.
And yeah.
And here we are. Well, we were speaking about this the other day, I think, and it's another thing that we're really hyper conscious of. When I say we, I mean Bar2 as a business. And in my lifetime before this, we spoke about it as a kind of candidate experience, but I think here it translates to contractor experience, and you touched on it. And I think having that kind of first-hand experience of, forgive the pun, but kind of the frontline grunt work, or the, you know, whatever the right way to frame that is, you understand what it's like to be in their boots, and I think that creates a huge amount of empathy, which you can then take and absorb and understand what it's like to be there on the front lines and go through that, but then equally, like, what don't I like about that? How do I want to change it? And I think one of the things that we're putting a lot of focus on at this year at Bar2 and moving forward is, you know, it's an experience, and it's a really important thing that we're dealing with, that being contractors' livelihoods. You know, people want to be paid on time, they want to be as informed as they can be on what products or what scenario and what products suit their scenario, and if we can streamline that and make that as frictionless, is that the right way to frame it, but as easy as possible for them to go, yep, start this gig, yep, got paid on Friday, that in-between stuff that's so super important, you know, it needs to be a certain standard, and it sounds like, not to put words in mouth, but it sounds like you've got a very similar perspective to that when
Absolutely.
on board contractors yourselves.
Absolutely, and I'll challenge all of the directors of the so-called competition to do the same. I've been out, most people know that we work quite heavily in the environmental waste industry, and to put it bluntly, I've got people collecting sewage from septic tanks or
yeah.
just so that nobody could say that I wouldn't do what I'm asking other people to go out and do. I've been out to Liverpool Street Station and emptied the toilets on the trains.
Wow.
Not very pleasant.
It doesn't sound.
But
I've seen those toilets as well.
Look, I've never felt comfortable in the managing director role because I've come from a place where I was always used to getting my hands dirty, and I want to continue having people believe that I'm prepared to get my hands dirty if necessary.
Yeah, definitely.
I love that.
Yeah.
Leading from the front.
That's it. And to have those stripes that you've proven yourself, it's refreshing to hear that perspective.
And also, I was thinking, it brings me back to kind of my halfway point from earlier, but with your background and being kind of at the front with the drivers, there's umbrella, there's a lot of misconceptions. Not a lot of people really umbrella, payroll services, agency payroll, a lot of misconceptions there, which we're always trying to kind of battle against and turn the tide. I know there's a lot with recruitment as well. What do you think, what are some of the most common kind of misconceptions you reckon you guys deal with? Yeah, sorry, go on.
It's the same in both of our agencies. The negative experiences always get highlighted, and the people who practice commonly using bad practice are the ones that always get all the headlines. As far as I'm concerned, who would I want as a contractor looking after my finances? Nick Campbell, who has no financial qualifications, or who are a team of qualified financial experts. So it's a no-brainer for me. I partner with people who can provide me with the expertise I don't have, and I do that across my business. My back office is all handled by experts.
Yeah.
My payroll is handled by experts. We're experts at putting people in the right, people who are looking for a career change or looking for the right role for them. That's where our expertise lies.
Sure. It might be a nice little segue. I mean, obviously the reason we've kind of collected today in this beautiful space is to talk a bit about the white paper, and I think, you know, that perception of an payroll partner, that perception of what good partnerships in this space look like. I think that's really the perception that we're coming up against. And it's not this kind of shady grey suit back office that's doing micro deals here and there to get the best possible margin in the most secretive way. We like to operate as fairly and transparently and in true partnership, playing back insight and analysis of the wider market. And our first iteration of that is this very recent white paper, which is all around the kind of trends that we recognise. We're paying thousands of people on a week-by-week basis, and it gives us a really good insight into what's happening in industries and sectors and specific types of contractors, and we're then able to play back some really interesting metrics which hopefully inspire and give managing directors and business owners like yourself, collateral to go in and maybe have harder hitting conversations with their clients, and that's in our perception of what partnership means. It's mutually beneficial discussion. So, long way to ask, what were your thoughts on the first white paper? You had time to review it with the team, and
we did, yeah. We reviewed it as a team, and it did bring up quite a lot of interesting conversations just between my staff, some of which have never been aired openly in discussion. So in terms of giving us food for thought, it was brilliant. I don't know if you wanted to go through parts of the white paper in more detail, but it certainly opened up a lot of discussion.
That's great.
And gave us, even Jada,
Shout out.
I think based on that discussion, wrote a LinkedIn post yesterday.
I think I may have seen.
Yeah.
I noticed that actually.
It was only after this it made her have a look at where we add value, and what value, and a lot of that was highlighted in the white paper.
That's amazing.
Yeah, brilliant.
It's a nice little story there. Good.
I had a thought, just because since the white paper, a lot of conversation obviously with you and other clients, but one of the things I hear most is driver shortages. I don't know if that, obviously we've got agencies in all kinds of different verticals there in the transport sector, but with you and your kind of niche, have you been affected with that, with driver shortages? And how have you overcome it, if you have any things that come to mind?
I wouldn't say that it's had a significant impact recently. We did go for a period, I think it was in the 2021, 2022, where everybody was panicking about the driver shortages, and there was reasons that have been highlighted in the white paper for that: Brexit, IR35, an aging workforce.
Yeah.
So there were a number of reasons for that, and I think we watched the industry change to a certain degree, where a lot of operators were starting to train their own, like there was companies doing stuff like warehouse to wheels, where they was taking people out of the warehouse and training them up as HGV drivers. The government was offering training for people what were out of work to retrain as lorry drivers, and then there was, because of the shortage being highlighted, there was a lot of people what were taking the initiative themselves to go and retrain. So we went for a period a few years back where we noticed the shortage, but currently I wouldn't say that we're being affected by a shortage of drivers.
And maybe educate on the types of drivers that you guys, what tends to be the spread of your type of drivers that you actually do? A little bit environmental, you mentioned.
Yeah, we do a hell of a lot in that space, and I'm not trying to give the competition any ideas, but we saw what everybody else was scrapping on and decided to go in a slightly different direction.
Yeah.
And it's worked for us. As I said, we've seen 4 years of growth, so we found what we're good at, and we're sticking with it.
That's great. To find that niche and carve it out in what is already, we all know it's a hyper competitive and razor thin margins, and I don't want to say that everyone knows each other. There's very much, I guess from my understanding, is like a bit of a cloak and dagger relationships built on, and a lot of kind of lone wolves out there that go out and will do whatever it takes to win the business, which again, business thrives in competition, but to carve out your niche in that type of environment and to go growth, especially all the other stuff that's gone on in the market, like your Brexits, we don't say much about it anymore, but that was that time frame, right? And to kind of make your way through that when there was a huge amount of uncertainty, it's kudos to you, Nick, because I can imagine it was a tough slog.
Yeah, we went through. I think it was throughout 2022. Like we we kind of, I think what happened is we had a great 2021. From launch to our first 12 months we exceeded expectations, and then we kind of hit a bumpy patch in 2022. We still grew as a company, but the growth wasn't as significant as it had been, and we did start to worry had we plateaued. But then we had a rethink, we knuckled down, we worked hard, and we came out of that in 2023.
Nice. Excellent. Can you think of any particular strategies or things that you did when you did that rethink with other agencies?
Look, it's not probably going to be popular with
competition.
Not even with the competition, but what we did was walk away from, we had a lot of business, or we had a certain amount of business with a managed service provider, which shall remain nameless, but we was doing a hell of a lot of work for really tight margins and waiting forever to get paid. That probably narrows it down.
Yeah, I think pretty well know what you mean there.
Yeah, we was doing a lot of work with them, and we decided to walk away from it. We thought the amount of time and money, the amount of time we're investing in that work, we're just not seeing the results from it.
Versus output wasn't
there. Yeah, so we decided to walk away. It was a big decision because obviously there was in terms of revenue, that was a big part of our revenue. But in terms of our net, at the end of it, it just didn't make any sense. So we walked away, refocused our energies on stuff that was making, and eventually we started to see the benefits of that decision.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, again, you know, it being in similar scenarios myself, you know, my background, I'm allowed to say sales on here, but you know, we work sales, and to have the confidence to turn away from a deal that you've obviously put a lot of legwork in to get, like the inner salesman of me is going, I feel the gut-wrenching pain, because it's natural, we all want to have those wins, but actually to go through that experience and then to kind of sit back and reflect and understand what went wrong where and how we come back, and then you have come back stronger. Again, you've obviously got some really slick things there that work for you, and again, it's great to see.
That was the hardest part, because we had to say to the account manager of that particular account, right,
with a relationship there as well,
say goodbye to that business, because it's just the value just isn't there.
Yeah, that makes sense. So coming back to the Whitepaper, because I'm keen to hear, you know, there's a lot of change going through the market at the moment. There's obviously a lot of regulation changes that are coming down the funnel. I mean, we're not to give away the timeline, but we're in March at the moment. Obviously, there's a couple of things happening in April that are already putting some red flags up for individuals and for agencies. You know, again, how far back you want to go, but how do you think over the last, you know, period, how are these changes going to affect yourself and your business? Is there anything that you kind of got nervous feet about, or anything that you're kind of anticipating might be a bit of a shock to the system? Or? Not to be a loaded question either. So.
Yeah, look, I would be a fool to say that we don't have to put like some kind of contingency plan in place, because we just don't know where this government's going and what is actually coming next. I thought IR35 was going to be about as bad as it got. We've had a change in government, and it seems. So we're having to put contingency in place just in case it ever comes to the point where we have to change our business model. But we've been through scares before, and over the last 20 odd years, there's always been rumour that certain things are going to happen that's going to change the industry. And
every April there's some sort of end of world news, isn't there? It seems to be the end of it.
Every month, I think. Meteors and the rest of it. But
so we're not panicking at this stage, but we are aware that we have to have a contingency plan just in case changes in legislation mean we can't continue operating the way we are.
So it sounds like, from what your last point, great point in regards to, you know, you have a lot of eggs in one basket. You've diversified your client base a little bit to kind of mitigate risks there. With 2025, another thing that's coming up all the time, probably the most popular conversation, is the rates. Rates are going up. Price rises, wage inflation. How has that affected you? And like, have you been able to have kind of meaningful conversations with your clients? Is the news being taken well? You know.
Well, obviously, every time we introduce a rate increase, that has a knock-on effect, and then our clients may have to go and speak to their clients, and so on and so forth. But bottom line is, everybody was aware that there was going to be an increase in employers in Ireland, and there's going to be an increase in the national minimum wage, which is going to have a knock-on effect. So it's not news that has come out of the blue.
No, for sure.
We're not trying to increase our margins or profit margins, right? All we're doing is moving with the times, and our clients are aware of that. They trust us as a partner. We always try, and one of the things that we've done is try and show our clients what our profit margin is, which is in most. I guess is the dirty secret in most agencies. How much profit are you making off of that? Yeah. But we try and be as transparent as possible, show what our margins are, and then show how we're breaking down the charge rate, so you know exactly what you're getting charged, what we're and why, and how much we're making off of that.
Excellent. So there shouldn't really be much kickback or pushback against it.
Well, yeah,
you like to think.
I mean, everybody's got to cut their cloth, right? But we try and make that decision as easy as possible by being as transparent as possible.
And it's, again, adapting to some of these changes. Obviously we're getting notified. We've got a little bit of kind of lead time before a lot of these things come into effect. I think a lot of companies are kind of leaning more towards technology and things like that to kind of help adapt quicker for some of these things that are happening. We're seeing that we're in an industry where margins are razor thin, legislation gets murkier and murkier and harder to, there's more grey areas that agencies kind of sit in. I think it's also led to, headcount across the industry, not just drivers, but across the agency space and the haulier space as well. We said like 14.2, I can't remember the specific respect, but maybe 14,000 employees within the space were made redundant since COVID. So, with a lot of these changes and things that have impacted people's livelihood, like how do you see the market kind of changing, looking outside of 2025, like looking into the future, diversifying of products is great, but what else can businesses maybe be doing to make sure they're not going to be caught short with some of this other stuff that's kind of slowly coming down the funnel?
As I said, like we tend to invest in our partners, and I don't try to know it all, so I take a lot of advice from people who are more intelligent and more in tune to what's going on than what I am. So I think Josh mentioned it, finding that framework of partners to work with and trust is going to be essential. And like I said, I know that you guys have got your eye on the ball with regards legislation, payroll legislation, so I don't necessarily have to know everything. I can come to you for that advice. And that's not to say that I'm ignorant, but you guys have had a lot more time. You guys, that's your business. You had a lot more time to take on that information, digest it, and say, look, here's how we come out the other side. And if I wasn't getting that valuable feedback, then I'd need to find somewhere to get it from.
I don't think anyone's got the capacity to manage, be an MD of a business as well as know all the ins and outs of the up and coming payroll changes and rules.
Is it a jack of all trades but not master of none mentality? It doesn't necessarily work, especially when there is so much change. The only consistent seems to be change. Sorry to tell you.
No, I was just going to follow on from that. Change. The future. What is the future of our industry? I know obviously there's always going to be agencies, and there'll always kind of be a need for outsourced payroll and compliance and the stuff that we do. But Nick, as a director, what do you think the future looks like? Do you think it'll be a shift to push workers to be PAYE, or do you see umbrellas ongoing?
I think that's what everybody wants, right? That's what the government wants. Everybody to be fully employed with full employment rights from day one. Which, look, I'm not saying it's necessarily a bad thing or a good thing. I don't know, but I just know it changes the way we operate. And I know that it doesn't suit everybody. If it did, we could look. If we was doing anything, I'm here on this occasion where this question is concerned to represent the candidates that I supply, and I know that the candidates that I supply are happy with the arrangement. They're not clamouring or asking to be PAYE, because if they were, we could have had that arrangement. We could have done that
for them anyway.
So I can't speak on behalf of the people who want to make everybody PAYE. I can only speak on behalf of the candidates that I represent who don't want to be PAYE.
It feels like we've come kind of full circle. Started off talking around driver experience, contractor experience, and we're kind of not necessarily finishing up there. But I guess to kind of bring it back onto Whitepaper, we covered a lot of different themes. Ranging from the state of the current market, employment shortages, inflation, talk a little bit about future state and autonomous vehicles and a range of stuff.
Yeah.
What would you say, and this is either like, I guess, from a personal perspective or from a company perspective, like what's that kind of valuable piece? And I'm not saying it's a silver bullet, it's our perspective, but if you could say that there's a valuable nugget of information from there, what would you say that
I think one of the things, I know that it says, I think over the next year, I think it said in your paper that we need to recruit another 50,000 drivers into the industry. Well, and I've read from the RHA that it's 200,000 over the next 5 years.
Yeah.
So we know that there's a place for us in this market if you've got to recruit 200,000 drivers over the next 5 years.
Yeah.
So as much as it seems like all doom and gloom and we've got to change the way we're working, there's still a market. There's still a marketplace for us, because if you need 200,000 drivers over the next 5 years, there's no way any internal recruiter are going to manage that.
No, for sure.
So we know that there's still a space for us in this market. Sure, I've gone off on one. I can't even remember what the question was.
No. I think what my takeaway is that it kind of gives you confidence that there's room to move, looking forward into the future. And I mean, hopefully not putting words in your mouth, but the white paper's providing you with a bit of insight to get there, right?
Look, one of the most insightful things in this, what I found in this paper, is that everybody assumes that Londoners earn the most.
Great point, actually.
They don't.
Yeah.
We're looking at, we have, I don't want to give the client away, but we're operating out of it, and the company what we're operating with in Erith has another branch in Oxfordshire. We use the same rates in Erith for Oxfordshire, being the same company and knowing that there's a smaller pool of drivers in Oxfordshire than there is going to be in the southeast. And we got asked to reduce our rates because we're not London. But the fact is that Londoners don't earn the most, not as drivers.
I think that everywhere is getting it. I know I've been back, not to go off personally, but moved back to England in 2012, and that difference of like the London wage in the last few years versus now the outside of London wage, regardless of industry. I think the nation, because of probably the COVID catalyst that made remote working more, and people have moved further away and away from corporate type jobs into more remote / maybe more gig-based work, because that's a huge booming industry, and people realise that there's more flexibility and work-life balance. But it's true, I don't think it's as clear-cut as inside M25 this much more than outside of M25. Like that mentality is, I think, outdated, and I don't think it applies, especially in the logistics space. We see it with our data, right?
Yeah, agreed. I was actually quite surprised. One of the most surprising bits of data in there is, without staying on top of this stuff, you assume everyone in London, you get the London wage. It used to be a London, and we're actually paid lower here than pretty much everywhere else in the country. It's really surprising.
So there was that, and then every networking event I go to, all I ever hear is automation and AI.
Yeah, across all industries as well, right?
And that's a scary thought, because the fact of the matter is we have to look at how we're going to change the way we work, which we have been. I can't give too much away. We genuinely believe that we've got a solution that, I think we might have discussed it before, but we genuinely believe we've got a solution that will put us ahead of a lot of our competitors. Now, it's going to take a lot of work and a hell of a lot of money, but I think it could potentially be a game changer. And if it works, I know that there'll be a lot of people looking at our model and how they can either copy it or improve on it.
There we go.
It's exciting.
I don't know if that kind of rounds us out with a little bit of a carrot and a little for the next conversation potentially, but I think we're about maybe 40 minutes into conversation. So look, I really appreciate you joining. Really appreciate you kind of taking time out of your day to meet, and it's been absolutely fantastic to kind of learn a little bit about you and where you've come from and your perspective on the market. And I mean, hopefully you've enjoyed yourself and you come back for the next one where we can talk a bit more about some of this exciting stuff down the pipe.
Yeah, thank you, James, for hosting and driving most of that. I appreciate that. Glad.
Pun intended.
Thanks again, Nick.
No,
Appreciate you coming down for today.
No, on that bombshell. Cheers, Nick.
Cheers.
Appreciate it.